In this video, we're going to talk about the problem of the fifth finger. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So you might be thinking, the problem of the fifth finger, what is the problem? And I'm glad that you asked, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. The first thing we have to talk about is the problem of tension. So I'm sure that we've all experienced this as we play the piano. We have either the flying five, so the flat five that sticks out way like this. I had a classmate in college who just did this. It was really, really, really bad, and she struggled to get that to just come down with the other fingers. The other problem, and this is more of a problem that I had, is that I would curl the finger like this. Not a crazy amount, and I've even seen people that curl the finger up like this. Now, some people think that it's not necessarily a problem as long as when it comes time to play the finger that we can actually bring it down. But the issue with this is that there is, a lot of tension in the hand that causes it to do this. I mean, put your hand on the keys, just rest all your finger on the keys, and you can notice that it feels fine. And then pull this finger up like this, and especially with that fourth finger, notice how tense that feels. It adds some tension to the hand. You can do the same thing by curling the finger up like this. That fourth finger, gosh, it hardly even wants to move, okay? So these are the visible signs of tension. Now we have to think about why we have tension in the fifth finger. Now, there's a couple reasons that this can happen. The first one is that if we collapse in the wrist, it can make the hand sort of have an underlying amount of tension, because instead of the wrist being in a good position to work with everything, more in this neutral position, if it collapses down, that can cause a little bit of tension in the hand. The other common reason, and this is probably more common than the wrist, is if we collapse this knuckle bridge like so. And what happens is, when this collapses, this is sort of like where the fingers lift and move from, okay? So it's nice and free, but if I collapse this down, and you can experiment with this, sort of collapse this down so this is kind of sunken in here and try to move the fingers, and you'll notice that they don't want to move very easily. So these are two reasons why, when we have this underlying tension in the hand, this finger can kind of do weird things. The other thing that can happen, of course, is if we're really pressing. So I notice, and you can try this, if I press really hard at that fingertip with my fourth finger, this fifth finger just pops right up. You can just try it. It's actually really hard to mentally be like, okay, keep that finger down and press with that finger. And see how it even it just kind of wiggles around because it wants to go up. Because when we press really hard with fingers like that, or sometimes you can have that same thing happen with the thumb, you put the thumb down and the middle finger just sort of pops up. Oftentimes it can come where we try to really stab, violently stab down with our fingers, and that can cause things to sort of tense up. So we need to have a little bit more of a easy approach to playing our fingers that won't cause the fingers to pop up like that. In fact, what we should be able to do is we should be able to play. So you can see how my fifth finger is just sort of sitting there. Not much is happening, okay? Now we need to talk about how to alleviate that tension. There's a couple different ways that we can do this. My teacher helps me do this by just telling me to keep that finger down, okay? Strong knuckle bridge, keep that finger down. This worked well for me. It might not work as well for someone else. And so one thing that you can do, okay, is you can practice playing. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll have my students, have some sort of release mechanism built into their playing. So anytime they come to a slur, we don't want to just release that note, but we actually want to release any tension that might be in the hand, etc. And kind of release all the time whenever we have a slur or long note, where we can sort of release that wrist and really think about relaxing everything. But the biggest reason that happens, again, can be because we collapse here, etc. And it can also just be a really, really bad habit. So we have to keep this structure in the knuckle, and we have to make sure that we're not building tension. Now, the next thing we have to talk about is the problem of how to play the fifth finger. So I see this a lot, the so-called karate chop, okay? Now, no one intentionally plays their fifth finger, you know, on its side like this, but it's a really, really big problem. It kind of looks like this. It's maybe not totally flat on its side, but it's, you know, almost flat. And you'll notice that that kind of causes my wrist to collapse, or it can actually cause this to collapse here. So we have to be able to, you know, learn from the start to play our fifth finger correctly. Otherwise, we're starting with collapsed knuckle bridge, collapsed wrists. So there's this underlying tension. And then as we get a little bit better to kind of play this fifth finger, but we still have this tension here, and every time we play that fourth finger, there's going to be tension in the wrist. So we have to learn to play it correctly. Now, generally speaking, you know, we want the fingers to be curved when we play them. We're not going to play the fifth finger curved like this, though. In fact, what I notice is when I do that, my thumb starts doing weird things, okay? It's like, oh, wow, I kind of relaxed that thumb, but it's hard to do that, okay? The fifth finger does not play very well with that curved position. It sort of forces my wrist to collapse. So it just sort of makes things feel really unbalanced and uncomfortable. The fifth finger is going to play actually more straight, and this kind of partly has to do with the fact that it's on the side of our hand and it's very, very short. So in order to have that good position with my knuckle bridge and my wrist, this finger is going to be mostly straight. And you can experiment with this again, curve that and try to keep a really nice knuckle bridge. It's really hard to do that, okay? It doesn't have to be straight down or anything. It can be, you know, a little bit more like this, but it's going to be more straight, okay? So it's important to get that. The next thing that I think tends to cause problems with the fourth finger and how we use it, of course, is the problem of how we use the finger. So the index finger is very capable of being independent movement, etc. The fifth finger is not super, like you can wiggle it around, but try to make really very, very technical, precise movements with it. It's very hard to do that, okay? It's a very small finger. It doesn't have like a lot of strength in that sense, but it can feel just as strong as the other fingers if I use it correctly. So in other words, we talked about this knuckle bridge, the wrist, etc., but also the position of my arm. If I play this fifth finger with my arm sort of, you know, almost lined up beside it. So in other words, my arm isn't over here where I might want it if I played my thumb. I want it here. So if I play something, now my arm is behind that finger. All of a sudden it feels really, really strong. So the position of my arm is also a really important concept. Now the last thing we're going to talk about, and this is the problem of fingering. And this is that I see this a lot, and I actually used to do this all the time. It's like, okay, this piece of music says that I'm supposed to use 5 on this certain note, and this is the fingering written out in this passage, so I have to do that. And my teacher will be like, actually, you shouldn't use 5 there at all because that's a really weird, awkward fingering. And this, I think, is such an important concept. Sometimes we can think of our fifth finger as being really weak, and so we want to force it to do things that it just can't do super well, right? In the same way that the thumb, because it's on the side of the hand, but it's also short and it uses differently when we play the piano, it can't do the same thing that the second or third finger can do, and we understand that intrinsically. But we have to understand that when it comes to the fifth finger. For instance, you know, if you have some sort of trill on, let's say, 2 and 3, you can do that. You can also use 1 and 3. So for instance, understanding different fingerings based on different circumstances or things. So for instance, what's a lot easier is using 3-5 for a trill instead of 4-5. I can still use 4 and 5, but depending on the context of the music, I might choose to use a different fingering. So it's really important to not try to force fingerings. Find something that works really well. Experiment, okay? Oftentimes, again, if we do want to use 4 and 5, say on a trill, I have to make sure that my arm is there. And I'm not really playing fast, so you can see I'm using some rotation there. That's also an important concept, but not really in the scope of this video. But I'm also making sure that my arm is really there to support that, okay? When we approach the fifth finger, when we play anything, we have to realize its strengths, its weaknesses, why we would often or commonly have problems with it when we play the piano, and how to approach those problems. And hopefully from this information that I presented here, you can begin to have an idea of how to approach playing the fifth finger, no matter what the context of the music is, and how to overcome any problems that you might be having with it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.